Hi there, it's Liz from Old Staples Crafts again, and I'm bringing you the next of our 12 tags for Christmas, and that's this one. And this one actually doesn't involve any stamping at all. This is just using up some bits of designer series paper, and this is the Candy Cane Lane, which at the point of filming this is still available on the website, in the shop. Although whether you would be able to order it and get it in time for Christmas is not guaranteed at this stage, but I thought it was still a nice project to share with you. So what do we need for this? So, well, obviously the first thing we need is a sheet of the designer series paper, and this is the one with the houses. We're using the small house. This is a bit big for this project, and then the other side are these candy drops. So we're then going to embrace the this snowfall and use one of the other pieces of designer patterns of designer series paper, which is this one, which has the little icons on the back. So let's get started. We will need a piece of crumb cake. And again, we're on the scraps. So this is a piece that is roughly 2.5 by 3 inches, which is 6.5 by 7 centimetres, and about the same size of the designer series paper. I know this is bigger, but we're going to be using the big shots, so it's a question of minimum sizes, and I happen to have this scrap. So let's start with cutting out the tag. We're using the Tags and Labels framelit dies, and we're using the two largest of the tags and the whole, which is this tiny piece here. So because we want the hole in the right place, we're going to use the magnetic base plate. So let me get that in. I'll pop that to one side for the moment. Let me just make sure that's in shot, which it is. So the magnetic base plate, and with that we don't need the thin die adapter because it's the right size without it. And then with our cutting surface, with the die with the cutting surface down, and then this tiny little piece you have to line up, and this is where you may need to move this around your base plate a bit, because the magnets are distributed throughout the base plate, and some of them are a little bit stronger than others, so you do need to allow the magnet to do its job, but do be careful that you don't end up with them overlapping like this. I don't know if you can see that. You do want them to be separate but near to each other, so there seems to be quite a nice strong magnet there, so let's try and use that one. There we are. So cutting plate on top and straight through the big shot. Don't worry about that slightly alarming cracking noise. That is perfectly normal and is nothing to worry about. So take these off, get rid of our hole. We don't need that. We don't need this piece. So there's our, don't know if that's focusing right, but that's our basic tag. And then we're going to bring in our designer series paper and do just the smaller of the two tag frames, so the positioning is less important because we don't need the hole this time. And then just take it back the other way, and as you can hear, there was only a tiny little crack that time. It doesn't always crack or give that alarming cracking noise. So let's get rid of this. And then we have our two pieces of, our two bits ready to go. So don't need these bits anymore, so let's pop those away. And as one of my colleagues says, don't put it down, put it away. So let's put all of those back onto the magnetic sheet before I lose them, particularly that tiny little hole punch bit. So that's that. Then just to make this a little bit more, to stand out a little bit more, I've inked around the edge on this sample, and I'm using one of the sponge daubers. and Early Espresso, which is the dark colour in the paper. It looks almost like it's black, but it actually is Early Espresso. So all we need to do is just load up the dauber and go round the edge. You can do this with a sponge. If you've got the sponges, then that's fine too. You don't have to do it at all. It just I think it just finishes the project off a bit better, and makes it just stand out a bit more. So that's all we need that for. Close this up. And now we're actually going to put the thread through the hole now, because as you'll see in the sample, it's sort of covered up. So I'm using the Candy Cane Lane Baker's Twine, which comes in a duo. And I have checked, as I say, this morning. Everything that I am using is still available, but I do film ahead, so I can't guarantee that it'll be available come the time when the video goes out, but hopefully. So just pop those through, and this time we're just tying them in a simple knot. Oh, we would be if I wasn't all thumbs this morning. It's actually brightened up today. We've had some fairly miserable days up here in Oxfordshire, but we've got a bit of sunshine today, so hopefully the lighting is a bit better than it has been. Just trim those ends off, get rid of those. Right, so that's that done. Now, what we also need to do is cut out one of the little houses. I am not going to bore you with me cutting this out, but suffice to say I've cut that out. It's not the most exciting thing to watch on a video. And I'm then taking some Wink of Stella and just going round the snow, just to bling that up a little bit. This is the clear Wink of Stella, which I have to say is one of my favourite things, particularly this time of year. Actually, I didn't on the original, but we might put some extra bits just on top of our little candy there. So that's that. We'll pop that to one side just to dry. And then what we're going to do is find our dimensionals, which needless to say are now hiding under the framelets. Because I'm going to be putting the house on top, and because this is designer series paper, not card, I'm going to use quite a few dimensionals behind, just to make sure that it stands up to being used and popped under the tree. So you may think that's dimensional overload, but it's just to make sure that everything is solid. So take the backings off these. Always helps if you stick them down properly, then it's easier to get the backings off. These are generally really easy to get the backings off. Some foam pads can be a nightmare. Although, having said that, then these little backing bits end up everywhere. But they always do, doesn't matter whose brand it is. So then we're going to pop this down so that it just covers the hole, but without the dimensional being too high up. And there you can see that, hopefully you can see that the dimensional doesn't come over the hole, but it does cover up the hole, which I think is quite nice just to have that hidden in the background. And then on the back of this, we're going to put a bit of Fast Fuse, which, as you probably know by now, is one of my favourite adhesives. Gentle touch, don't get too hard with it. And then this is from the duo that actually is Cherry Cobbler, but I think it's such a nice red that it's close enough for this. And this comes in a duo with the Emerald Envy, I think it is. So we're just going to take a piece of that off. I cut a little notch in the top of my reel so that it doesn't go everywhere. Then we're going to wrap this round 3 fingers, and then pop that Now I've put it mostly to one side, and actually let's make sure I do it mostly to the same side again. I think it's quite nice to have most of it coming out of one side of the house so that it's not too symmetrical. I'm not a great one for symmetry in crafting. I think it looks a bit false. So I'd rather go a little bit less precise. That's my excuse, as they say, and I am sticking to it. So let's just pop that down. So the ends are hidden, and then a couple of dimensionals on the back too, just so that we can pop it up. Ooh. And then just off-center onto the tag. This one's probably a little wilder than the original, but there we are. So, quick, easy project for today. Hope you enjoyed that. Nice way of using up some of your scraps of the designer series paper. And I will be back tomorrow with another project for you. If you want any of the supplies, there's a link to my shop in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're on my blog, then it's at the bottom of the post. The link to the associated post is in the YouTube description. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon, and thank you for joining me today.